The 53 man for the Jacksonville Jaguars is built, but GM James Gladstone is never stagnant and they ain't satisfied.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is, in fact, your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where we give you all of the latest news and our opinions that help shape your attitude and your foresight, if you will, and your vision for what the Jacksonville Jaguars are going through or will go through this season. I'll tell you today what we're going to deal with in just a moment. But first, I have to let you know that wherever you get your podcast, make sure you tap into that location each and every day, just like the everydayers do, who we appreciate being here. And if you're new here, well, we'll give you a reason to come back as long as you just listen. That's right. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today to start planning your futures bets now. All right, where we're going is this. James Gladstone met with the media today, a day after. In fact, 24 hours exactly after the 4 p.m. deadline to get to the 53. That has already changed a little bit. Since then, we'll discuss that. We'll end up talking about the hoops team. Yeah, hoops like in basketball, and the confidence level of James Gladstone. This whole process has crescendo to this point, but it doesn't mean the Jaguars are satisfied. I'll tell you why. Them not being stagnant, and those are his words, really boosts the confidence that I talked about, or we will talk about in segment 3. But first, GM James Gladstone speaks on the 53, a little Q&A from the media. I happen to have a chance to show up today. Y'all know that. Usually I'm kind of tied up and busy with something, but we got down there and I was able to ask a couple of questions. So I won't necessarily quote him as much as I'll just kind of explain to you and paraphrase some of the things that he said, not only for the questions that I asked, but questions that the other members of the local media asked. Y'all know how big I am on local. It's all about local media and people that have their finger on the pulse of the team. My general feeling overall is that while they're not stagnant or satisfied, they are thrilled with their process and how they got to the 53-man roster. Very gracious and very thankful, even to the guys that didn't make the 53 and the practice squad. They're still very gracious to all of those people, and we'll go through some of those names in just a second. But he was pointed in making sure that he made it be known that it's always fluid. The team is always looking to get better. And to me, that is one of those things about this business. I did ask him about Travis Hunter and if he was what everyone thought he was, and in terms of the process, like when Travis got here, I'll give you a little bit of backdrop. Liam Cohen was like, we don't know what it's going to look like. We haven't figured it out. And we're just going to, you got the guy in the building. And I think he has been everything that they thought. And I even believe, this is just me, with listening to it, it sounds as if he's actually exceeded their expectations and he's validated in a big way them trading all of the draft capital, including a first-round pick next year, also along with the 5th pick and some other stuff this year. He's more than validated that. And I don't think they've even touched the surface on what they expect to show with Travis Hunter on the field. So with all things being considered, in my opinion, if Travis Hunter is healthy, this is going to be a situation where they co-feature him and Brian Thomas Jr. In terms of what it's going to look like, in terms of how they split his time from offense to defense, that's a tactical advantage that they have because people haven't seen it. And because he said that, he was talking about the regular season, but to me, that also means what you've seen in preseason. I almost bit my tongue. Preseason as well as the practice sessions. I really believe the things they are going to start doing They know what those things are. And when those games really start for real, man, y'all gonna see something that you haven't seen yet. You haven't even seen a glimpse of it yet. I think he's extremely happy with one particular unit, and with several of them, but the offensive line. He spoke glowingly. The first thing he mentioned was the physicality. I think they came out of camp extremely happy with the overall physicality of his team. And I believe that had a lot to do with who made the roster and who didn't. The offensive line, he talked glowingly about them. He mentioned that they have dudes up and down that depth chart that have played inside, outside, both sides of the center. And I think that when you look at the way the line is built, they have a bunch of people that they can shift and move around. And that works in the favor of the team in multiple ways. And one of them is, how many people will they keep active? Do you know how hard it is to go into a game and having to decide whether you keep 8 or 9 guys only because everybody isn't able to move around? There is no versatility. You may have dudes that all they can play is one position. Somebody gave me an analogy back in the day of the military. They said one thing about us when we were in the Air Force, and I was in a law enforcement unit that would double up as an infantry unit during times when it was necessary. He said, all y'all can do everything. That's from a Mark 19 to a 50 cal to M203, M60. We were all qualified on everything. They said some of our adversaries, and I ain't got to mention who those people were at the time, but you can only guess that this is the late 80s. You know what I'm talking about. He said the problem with them is in a 4-man fire team, if one of them goes down, nobody knows how to do the other guy's job. So I kind of take that experience, and shout out to my Army and Marine guys out there, because the only Air Force dudes that know what I'm talking about are people that had that same code that I had, the same job that I had. But the Army and the Marines know exactly what I'm talking about and why that's important. There's I wouldn't even say a duality to it, because duality means two. There's more than that. You got a guy like Pat McCary that can play anywhere. And that's why it kills me when people talk about his value or whether or not he starts. Yeah, Pat McCary is going to be a big part of what they do, and Chuma Edoga. And now you also see who they were able to move on away from. It made it a lot easier because of the versatility of those players. So good on James Gladstone for instilling confidence. And I don't even think it's what he tried to do, but the way he spoke today, there's a quiet, calm, not bragging, but also not having all of this humility that you think a dude who doesn't know what he's doing should have. No, man, they're going to get after it. They're ready to play some ball. He was like, spot the ball. And he's saying all of these things. Let's go. It's go time. I don't think he said that, but something that he said was very, very similar to that. And you can hear that interview on Jaguars.com. I left there thinking like they're quietly confident in where they are as a franchise with what they set out to do. Interesting. Some of the questions were very, very interesting. I'll paraphrase some of those questions and we'll get into it in the second segment. But I want y'all to know they are not resting on their laurels. They are not stagnant. They're always trying to improve. They know what it looks like. They know what they want. And the biggest thing that I can tell you is this whole getting guys and finding out what their superpower is and seeing if that's something that we can incorporate into our program is real. And they're going to continue to do that. And that's why I'm happy about them having the draft capital, even without a first round pick in the future or next year, that I think they can get players that can really help this ball club. We'll discuss it more here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. That is correct, man. FanDuel is the absolute truth, and you all know it. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ, before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. I'm going to take a flyer right now and tell you that Joe Burrow is going to get this year the MVP trophy that he didn't get last year, even though the Bengals are going to struggle to 500. It's always, we got to pay you back. And nobody knows that more than Baltimore Ravens fans. All right, visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because FanDuel Futures Day is one day and one day only. I'll say it again. It's August 26th, FanDuel Futures Day. FanDuel, play your game. Rolling along and running it down here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. If you're watching, your boy got a haircut. I just went and got that haircut. I think I look pretty spiffy. You come see me tomorrow. I'll be looking like Fred Sanford again when all of this black dye goes out. But anyway, if you're listening, you ain't worried about what my hair looks like. You're only worried about what I'm saying, and that's why I want to give it to you right now. The Jags will not be stagnant. Gone are the days of being satisfied with where you are. I asked him, I said, man, is this where you thought you'd basically be when you took this process? He basically told me, we ain't put no limit on where we thought we'd be. We're always trying to get better. We're not stagnant. We're not going to lay stagnant. We are going to keep marching forward, basically. And it was music to my ears, because what that tells you is every single day is going to be competitive. It is going to be competition. It is going to be them attempting and going at it and chasing greatness. And I really, really like that. He loves this roster, I think. I think he likes the running back. He talked about the running backs. He said they got 4 that they can play with. He said it's different going from a 53-man to the 47 or 48 that you have dressed out every single day. He made that point when Demetrius Harvey, my buddy, asked him about Demetrius Harvey from the Jacksonville.com, Florida Times Union. Demetrius asked him about Travis Hunter and his versatility and how that helped him have that extra body on the 53. He says it helps more on game day as opposed to the 53, because now you have that extra body, because you don't have to choose between a wide receiver and a DB, or whatever your normal numbers would be. It'll be one less, and therefore you can take that body and put him somewhere else. I think it makes total sense. I think he really, really likes that group. I'm going to go through another group, the defensive line. He talked about, and he was very, very specific about the makeup of that line. And even Jamal Sancier from Channel 4, the sports director, he even asked him a question about when did the Colin Saunders thing take shape? And James gave us a little bit of behind the veil coverage when he said they had lost a center a week prior to that. And because they had lost a center a week prior to that, they knew we had depth and they reached out to us. So while they were going through the ebb and flow and the back and forth of what they have that they were willing to include on a package, the Jaguars went into the game, took a look-see, and realized that Colin Saunders was going to be a big help for them on the interior of that line. And that led to something that he said about the makeup. You got 2 guys on the line. He was talking about Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker that were first-round top 10 picks in the draft, right? And then you have the veterans, Devon Hamilton, Eric Armstead, Colin Saunders. And then he talked about having Emmanuel Ogbah and, of course, Dwan Smoot, veteran guys that are defensive ends that in a pinch, you have guys that can also press inside in sub packages. And then he mentioned Strigo, the young kid, and he mentioned BJ Green. And he talked openly about how during this process, they did not address in the draft. They did not address in the draft or the initial phase of free agency. They did not touch the defensive line and the edge. So part of them being able to sell those undrafted free agents, and he mentioned that when he was with the Rams, they took a lot of pride in those undrafted free agents. He was able to sell them on their opportunity to come here because they didn't draft anyone. And at the time, Emmanuel Ogbah and Smoot weren't even on the team. I think they may have gotten Ogbah on the real close, maybe the second or third day of the draft, because they didn't address it early. But that's the key. The key is those guys came into camp and realized that they had a legitimate shot to make this team, and they took advantage of that situation, and it happened. So what happened was, and I'm sure he said something to the effect of, we didn't set out to do anything like okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. We're going to overturn this much of the roster or have this. It has to play itself out. But when it does and it lines up, he pointed out the fact that they have different age groups, different talent levels, guys that are in development who can help you right now. So what it sounds like is something that I said recently. Both Emmanuel Ogbah and Dewan Smoot are on one-year deals. If you get these dudes and you have them in your building, Strigo and BJ Green, those dudes can actually move up and be the reserves that those older players are currently right now. And it all works for the greater good, man. We didn't really get into the linebackers that much, but we definitely heard him mention the competition level that was in the defensive backfield and the addition of Tim Patrick, the wide receiver, to the wide receiver group. And I'll hit that in the third segment because that's a part of my hoops team and confidence that they have. But really, 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 he struck my nerve in a good way when he talked about Trevor Lawrence and the growth, the development, and how Trevor has processed all of the things that they've been teaching him and where he is now based on where he was when they first came in and started implementing everything. He's sounding like a dude that is seriously, seriously confident and is in a real, real good place. I'll get into in the third segment how this was probably, and I got this out of what he said, that this was probably a little more difficult than he imagined it would be to be able to tell dudes who gave their all to this franchise that they were moving in a different direction. I can only imagine that is a hard thing to do. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've been putting together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to Locked On Podcasts with an s.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's Locked On Podcasts with an s.com/survey. So you also can find the link in the show notes here on this show. Thanks for helping us out here at the Locked On Podcast Network. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you and presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz because of all of these cuts going on. Fantasy football season is here, and everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now is the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. I would be anywhere else except Yahoo Fantasy because this year I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy for the 20th time, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With the season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. You want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest score each week gets eliminated, weekly elimination, until one team is left standing. You want to play inside or instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew, no problem. Join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off on September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Little housekeeping here. Make sure y'all check out the Locked On Podcast Network's newsletter. It is on Locked On Podcast with an s.com/newsletter. Make sure you go, man. A lot of good stuff on there, a lot of hard work put in, and it's really, really good reading material for you. And you can get a lot of information that you might not see every day everywhere else, because those guys and girls do a really, really good job. Make sure you check that out. All right. So here in the third segment, I want to mention something real quick that struck me. James Gladstone met with the media today. Very, very measured, very, very confident, a quiet confidence. He did, however, have a little moment of vulnerability where they were asked, he was asked, I can't remember who it was, but asked him, I think it was Demetrius Harvey again, during this phase yesterday where he had to make these cuts and have those conversations, did it go the way he thought it was, or was it something like, was it different actually being the one to have to do it? And you could see it was. And he said, having been in a situation basically where he's had those conversations amongst the staff in LA where they were leading up to it, this is actually the first time that he had to be the person to basically tell guys, thank you, and we appreciate you, but we're going to move in a different direction. And he humanized it. And I think that is very transparent, because we all know it's true. You know, sometimes these people in these leadership positions, they talk with the fire and brimstone of a war general, and it's like, we got to do what we got to do. Next man standing. But this was a moment where there was a real clarity. And I think sometimes vulnerability is really, really good, because it opens you up, because you're not afraid of any repercussions from being able to show the sensibilities of a situation. To me, that is confident while being transparent and while showing the humility and the human side. So he said, yeah, man, having to look at guys and tell them that, he said it was probably a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be. And then while he didn't say this, the tenor of what he was coming with was, but we charge on, we move forward. And I think that means you think about, it makes it easier when you think about the guys that you're keeping and what they did to actually make themselves a part of this team. And that had to be really, really hard for a wide receiver, my man Trammell, man. Yesterday, Austin Trammell made the 53 and probably was as happy as he's ever been in his life. And then this morning, the Jaguars trade a 6th-round pick to the Detroit Lions for wide receiver Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick's a 6'5" wide receiver, man. He's caught a lot of balls. He looked like he was on his way to a superstar, and I know that from fantasy. Shout out to Yahoo. We were playing Yahoo Fantasy a couple of years ago when he was in Denver, and he was catching everything. In fact, he was actually outplaying Cortland Sutton at the time, and then he got a knee injury. Ended up being in Detroit. He's healthy from that injury. He caught some balls last year, but obviously they have 2 or 3 guys ahead of him, and they have a couple of running backs they use a lot. But Tim Patrick fits what they want. They went out and got him. He adds to the quote-unquote basketball team mentality that was mentioned on multiple occasions today, and I even tweeted out earlier this morning that the Jaguars wide receiver room now looks like a 3-guard basketball team, where they have a point guard. I would probably say that's Parker Washington. They have a couple of 2 guards in Travis Hunter and Diami Brown. And then they don't really have a center or power forward. That's where they have Brian Thomas Jr. and Tim Patrick. So the basketball effect is it gives you a different look. It gives you different levels and different things that people have to stop. All of those guys don't look the same. All of those guys don't act the same. They all have great skill sets, can line up in different positions. But here's the thing that Tim Patrick does. He's a blocker. So this is not just about them getting a big receiver. I have seen people talk about that. And while that is true that it wouldn't hurt to get a big guy, the thing is that means if all things are being equal, because Austin Trammell, the guy he replaced, wasn't a big guy, but he was the best guy based on who they could get at that point. And then a day later, they go out and get Tim Patrick, and he checks this other box of size and has the ability to block. So that's part of their thought process, and that's part of the way that they do business, man. And I really, really like it, because what it tells you is they are always looking for ways to improve and add more tools and more bullets, if you will, to the magazine. And I think Their teams are in for it, man, because nobody knows exactly what they're going to do. And I know they're going to sit and look at Tampa film from last year, and they're going to study the Rams and what Liam Cohen was able to do with the Rams, and may even look back at his college game tape when he was coaching at Kentucky. I think this is totally different. I think this thing has crescendoed for him and crested at, when I get the chance to do the things that I want to do, and we can get the people in that can do the things that we want to do, and there's competition and we have a plethora of weapons, I think the Jaguars are going to, one, be very, very physical, but they are going to attack. I think when they're up 15 or 14 or 17, they're going to keep attacking. They ain't going to just try to milk the clock, even though there'll be some game managing in there. And I'm really, really happy with where they are right now. How much will they win? I will talk about that as we get closer to game week and game day. But I think fans should be really, really happy with the direction of the team, with the attitude of the team. It's not stat quo. It's not just the same old, same old. This ain't that, man. This thing looks like the real deal. And we just got to wait and see if it manifests itself. Now, he's quietly confident. He is quietly confident, I believe. And even if he does have some inner feelings on, well, we might still need this or we might still need that, I think they believe they have done the best absolute job they can to build this roster. I think they've taken advantage of a lot of opportunities. They've been extremely intentional. And I think they can't wait to not only see what they have, but to show the fans of Jacksonville what they have. And you can show out when you're the GM of your own team on fantasy football. That is right. Vinny Iyer, who runs with Michelle Majuk, they run the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast on our network like nobody else. So make sure you tap in to that location wherever you get your podcast each and every day. I'm telling you, man, it's going to help you win your fantasy league and make you a champion like I have been before in fantasy football. Make sure you do that wherever you get your podcast. We thank you for joining us. 27 minutes today you spent with me. We value your time as much as you value your time to spend with us. We absolutely appreciate it. We got a lot of football to talk about, a lot of things to look forward to. We'll get into it all here on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you stay tapped in each and every day. We'll see you.